Have you ever looked at your bank statement and wondered where all the money went? You work hard, you earn a decent salary, but at the end of the month, the balance is always lower than you expected. Most people think they have a generic spending problem, but what they actually have is an ego tax problem. This isn't a tax the government collects. It's a tax you voluntarily pay to look more successful than you actually are. It is the silent killer of wealth that keeps millions of people trapped in jobs they hate. Today, we are going to use the ego tax calculator to find your number and reveal the true price of your social status. Prepare yourself, because the math might be harder to swallow than you think. Welcome to our deep dive into the ego tax calculator series. In this video, we aren't just talking about saving pennies on lattes. We are talking about a fundamental shift in how you view every single dollar that leaves your pocket. We are going to categorize your spending, look at the motivations behind your biggest purchases, and calculate the exact monthly fee you pay for validation. By the end of this session, you'll have a clear framework to stop the bleeding and start building a life of true financial independence. If you've ever felt the pressure to keep up with the Joneses, this is for you. Let's get into the mechanics of the calculator and see what your ego is costing you. The first category in our calculator is the luxury car trap. For many, a car is the ultimate status symbol, the first thing people see when you arrive anywhere. But ask yourself, would you still drive that specific car if no one else could see it? If you chose the higher trim level or the premium brand just for the badge, you're paying an ego tax of several $100s a month. Think about the difference between a reliable, comfortable sedan and a luxury sports car that drains your gas and your savings. That monthly payment difference isn't just for leather seats. It's for the way you hope people look at you in traffic. That's the first line item on our calculator, and for most, it's the largest. Next, let's talk about the designer label myth and how it inflates your monthly expenses. We've been conditioned to believe that a logo on a shirt dictates our value as a person. When you spend $200 on a plain cotton t-shirt because of a tiny embroidered emblem, you are paying a massive premium for someone else's marketing. The quality might be slightly better, but is it 5 times better? Usually not. The extra $180 is your ego tax. This adds up quickly when you consider shoes, bags, and watches. Calculate the difference between the high-quality unbranded version and the one you bought to be noticed. That difference goes straight into the ego column of our spreadsheet. Then there is the dining for the gram phenomenon, which has ruined many a weekend budget. We've all been there, sitting at a restaurant where the food is mediocre, but the decor is stunning. You aren't paying $60 for a steak, you're paying for the background of your next Instagram story. When we choose restaurants based on their aesthetic appeal rather than the quality of the food or the company, we are taxing our own future. Think about the drinks ordered just because they come with a sparkler or a fancy garnish. If you would have been just as happy with a home-cooked meal and good friends, the entire restaurant bill is often an ego tax. Stop eating for the audience and start eating for the appetite. One of the most insidious forms of ego tax is the tech upgrade cycle. Do you really need the latest smartphone every 12 months? Or do you just want to avoid being the person with the old model? Modern technology has plateaued, and for most of us, a 3-year-old phone performs just as well as the newest flagship for daily tasks. However, the social pressure to have the 3 cameras on the back is immense. When you trade in a perfectly functional device and pay another $1,000 for a marginal upgrade, that is a pure ego play. That $1,000, if invested, could have turned into much more. Instead, it's sitting in your pocket, depreciating, while you wait for the next shiny thing to be released. Let's move into the VIP culture and the cost of exclusivity. Whether it's bottle service at a club, front row seats you can't afford, or skip the line passes at an event, we often pay more just to feel important. The actual experience often isn't significantly better, but the feeling of being in the inner circle is what we're actually purchasing. Our calculator looks at these upgrades as a major leak in your wealth building. If you're spending an extra $200 to sit 3 rows closer, ask yourself, is the view 3 rows better, or does it just feel better to be ahead of others? Most of the time, the ego tax is the only thing being served at the VIP table. We can't talk about ego tax without mentioning the modern wedding industry. It's one of the few days in your life where society tells you that spending your entire life savings is not only okay, but expected. Many couples start their married life in debt just to impress guests they haven't spoken to in years. From the 10-tier cake to the designer tuxedo, every extra that is added to satisfy expectations is an ego tax. If you could have a beautiful, intimate ceremony for a fraction of the price, but choose the grand ballroom for the prestige, the difference is your ego bill. Starting a partnership with a financial burden just for one day of applause is a tax that can take years to pay off. Subscription overload is another hidden ego trap. Are you paying for the elite membership at a gym you barely visit because the branded bag makes you look like an athlete? Are you subscribed to every premium streaming service just so you can join the conversation about the latest show the moment it drops? These small monthly fees act like paper cuts on your bank account. Individually, they seem small, but collectively, they represent a desire to be seen as someone who is in the know and high status. The ego tax calculator asks, if no one knew you had these subscriptions, which ones would you keep? If the answer is none, then cancel them today and watch your savings grow. Travel has become one of the biggest drivers of the ego tax. There is a huge difference between traveling to see the world and traveling to show the world you are traveling. Choosing a business class flight you can't afford or staying at a 5-star resort just for the infinity pool photo is a massive financial drain. You could have experienced the same culture, food, and weather for a third of the price, but the ego demands the luxury backdrop. When you look at your travel budget, identify the status upgrades. That extra $2,000 for the ocean view might be nice, but if it's purely for the aesthetic of your vacation, it's a tax you're paying to your followers, not your future. Home decor and the Pinterest perfect life can also be a source of significant ego spending. Many people feel pressured to constantly renovate or buy expensive furniture to keep their homes looking like a magazine spread. It's not about comfort or functionality, it's about what the neighbors or the family will think when they visit. Buying a $5,000 sofa when a $1,000 one is just as comfortable is a $4,000 ego tax. We turn our homes into museums of our success, rather than places of rest. The ego tax calculator helps you separate the things that make your home better from the things that just make it look more expensive to outsiders. High-end gym memberships and specialized fitness boutiques often carry a heavy ego tax. We see the logos on the water bottles and the specific leggings people wear. While health is an investment, you don't need a $300 a month membership to stay in shape. Often, we pay for the association with a certain type of person. If you're going there to work out, any gym will do. If you're going there to be seen working out at that place, you're paying the tax. Ask yourself if your fitness goals would be met just as well at a local community center, or even in your garage. If the answer is yes, you've found another place where your ego is stealing from your retirement. Beauty and grooming habits have also been hit by the ego tax. There is a line between self-care and status-seeking maintenance. 10-step skincare routines with products that cost more than your groceries, or hair treatments that require monthly trips to the most expensive salon in town, often serve the ego. We want to be the person who can afford that level of maintenance. While looking good can boost confidence, the ego tax calculator looks for the point of diminishing returns. When the cost of your appearance starts to compromise your financial security, you are no longer maintaining yourself. You are maintaining an image for a world that doesn't actually care as much as you think. Being an early adopter is often just a fancy way of saying you like paying the ego tax for new tech. Whether it's the first version of a VR headset, a foldable phone, or a new type of kitchen appliance, the first generation is always the most expensive and the least reliable. By waiting 6 months, the price drops and the bugs are fixed. But the ego wants to be first. It wants to be the person people ask about the new tech. That privilege of being first comes with a high price tag. If you waited, you'd have the better version of the product and more money in the bank. The calculator shows that patience is the ultimate enemy of the ego tax. Have you ever found yourself buying a round of drinks for people you don't even like? Or perhaps picking up the check for a large group just to avoid the awkwardness of splitting it, or to look like the big spender? This is the social ego tax. It's the money we spend on people who wouldn't help us if we were in a bind. We do it to feel powerful or generous in the moment, but the bank account feels the sting later. This type of spending is particularly dangerous because it feels like a good thing to do. But if it's done of a need for approval, it's just another tax on your future. Real generosity doesn't need an audience. One of the most painful realizations is calculating the interest rates on ego debt. If you bought that luxury car or those designer shoes on a credit card, you aren't just paying the ego tax once. You're paying it every single month in interest. A $2,000 bag can easily turn into a $4,000 bag over a few years of high-interest payments. This is the ultimate trap. You are essentially paying the bank to help you look richer to your friends. The ego tax calculator doesn't just look at the sticker price. It looks at the long-term cost of borrowing money to sustain a lifestyle you haven't earned yet. It's time to stop paying interest on your vanity. Now, let's calculate your hourly ego rate. Take the total amount of ego tax you pay each month and divide it by your hourly wage. If you pay $1,000 in ego tax and you make $25 an hour, you are working 40 hours every month just to satisfy your ego. That is an entire week of your life, every single month, gone. You are essentially a slave to the image you've created. When you look at it this way, is that designer jacket really worth 40 hours of sitting in a cubicle? Usually the answer is a resounding no. Time is the only resource we can't get more of, yet we trade it away so freely for things that don't matter. Consider the time lost working just to maintain your status. People often say they can't afford to retire, but what they really mean is they can't afford to retire and keep their current level of ego tax. If you cut the ego spending, your cost of living drops significantly, meaning you need much less to be financially free. The calculator shows that for many people, the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 55 is simply the ego tax. You are trading 10 years of your life for the sake of appearances. Imagine what you could do with those 10 years if you weren't so worried about what everyone else thought of your car or your clothes. Social media has turned the ego tax into a global competition. We aren't just comparing ourselves to our neighbors anymore. We're comparing ourselves to the top 0.1% of the world. We see influencers with private jets and designer wardrobes, and we feel like we're falling behind. But remember, much of what you see online is rented, gifted, or bought on credit. When you try to replicate that lifestyle, you are paying a real tax for a fake reality. The ego tax calculator reminds us to close the apps and look at your own bank accounts. Validation from strangers on the internet won't pay your bills or fund your retirement. It's a game where the only way to win is not to play. The I've Made It starter pack is a common trap for young professionals. The moment they get their first big promotion, they immediately upgrade the apartment, the car, and the wardrobe. They think they need to look the part to be successful. In reality, true success is having the freedom to not care about looking the part. Many of the wealthiest people you will ever meet drive 10-year-old cars and wear simple clothes. They don't pay the ego tax because they don't need external validation. They have internal validation, which is free. The starter pack is just a way to ensure you stay stuck in the middle class forever, working to pay for the symbols of success instead of achieving it. Don't forget the hidden costs of maintenance for ego purchases. A luxury home or a high-end car doesn't just cost more to buy, it costs more to keep. The insurance is higher, the repairs are more expensive, and even the specialized cleaning products add up. These are the trailing ego taxes. They stay with you long after the initial thrill of the purchase has faded. When you buy something to impress others, you are also signing up for a lifetime of higher maintenance costs. The ego tax calculator factors in these recurring expenses to show you the true long-term impact on your net worth. It's the gift that keeps on taking. What is the opportunity cost of an extra $500 a month? If you took that ego tax money and put it into a simple index fund every month, after 30 years, you'd have nearly $1 million. That is the true price of your ego. It's not just the $500 today, it's the $1 million you won't have in the future. Every time you choose to pay the ego tax, you are stealing $1 million from your older self. The ego tax calculator is a time machine that shows you the future you are sacrificing for a few minutes of social approval today. Which one do you value more? A fancy car now or $1 million later? Imagine retiring 10 years earlier than you planned. For most people, this is entirely possible if they simply eliminate the ego tax. Think about what you could do with that time. You could travel for your own enjoyment, spend time with your family, or pursue a passion project that doesn't need to make money. Freedom is the ultimate luxury, but it doesn't have a logo, and you can't post it on Instagram to get likes. This is why so few people choose it. They would rather have the visible status symbol than the invisible freedom. But you are different. You are here, doing the math, and realizing that the best things in life aren't things at all. There is a massive difference between real wealth and relative wealth. Relative wealth is about having more than the people around you. It's a race with no finish line because there will always be someone with a bigger house or a faster car. Real wealth is about having enough to live the life you want on your own terms. When you stop paying the ego tax, you stop competing in the relative wealth game. You realize that you don't need to be better than anyone else. You just need to be better than you were yesterday. This shift in mindset is the most powerful tool in the ego tax calculator. It turns your focus inward, where it belongs. Psychological freedom comes when you realize that most people aren't even thinking about you. We spend so much money trying to impress people who are actually too busy worrying about what we think of them. It's a massive, expensive circle of insecurity. When you realize that the Joneses are likely broke and stressed out trying to keep up their own image, the pressure to follow them disappears. You are no longer performing for an audience. You can wear what's comfortable, drive what's reliable, and live where you're happy. The ego tax calculator isn't just about money. It's about reclaiming your mental energy and your peace of mind. The power of saying no to the Joneses is transformative. It might feel awkward at first to decline an expensive dinner or to keep your older car when your friends are upgrading. But that awkwardness is just the feeling of your ego shrinking. Over time, that feeling is replaced by a sense of strength and control. You are the one in charge of your financial destiny, not the marketing departments of luxury brands. Every no to a status purchase is a yes to your own freedom. The ego tax calculator is your permission slip to be different. It's okay to be the person with the boring car and the massive bank account. In fact, it's the smartest thing you can be. Building a life of quiet luxury is the ultimate goal. This means buying things for their quality, their utility, and the joy they bring you personally, not for the statement they make to others. It's about a high-quality pair of boots that will last 10 years, not a trendy pair that will be out of style in 6 months. It's about a home that is a sanctuary for your soul, not a stage for your social life. Quiet luxury doesn't scream, it whispers. And because it doesn't need to impress anyone, it doesn't come with an ego tax. When you buy for yourself, you only have to satisfy one person, and that makes life a lot cheaper and a lot more meaningful. Now it's time for the spreadsheet test. This week, I want you to go through your last 3 months of bank statements. For every purchase, ask yourself, if no one ever saw this, would I still have bought it? Be brutally honest. If the answer is no, mark it as ego tax. Add those numbers up and see what your monthly ego bill is. Then look at that total and think about what it could be doing for you if it were invested. This simple exercise can be life-changing. It turns an abstract concept into a concrete number. Once you see the number, you can't unsee it. That is the power of the ego tax calculator. It makes the invisible costs of your life visible. Breaking the cycle of ego spending isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice. There will always be a new gadget, a new trend, or a new reason to feel like you aren't enough. But now you have the tools to recognize the trap. You have the ego tax calculator in your mind. Before you buy anything, run the math. Ask about the hourly ego rate. Consider the interest on vanity. Think about the opportunity cost. When you make decisions based on your values instead of your ego, you become unstoppable. You are no longer a consumer. You are a builder. And what you are building is a life of true, lasting wealth that no one can take away from you. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the ego tax calculator. If this video helped you see your finances in a new light, please share it with someone who needs to hear this message. We're all in this together, trying to navigate a world that wants us to spend our way to happiness. Let's choose a different path. Tell us in the comments what your biggest ego tax discovery was. It helps others feel less alone in their journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates and financial mindset deep dives. Your future self will thank you for the steps you take today. See you in the next video.